So we've arrived at the fourth mastery in the sovereign way, expansion. And the topic of today is, how do I stay sovereign during a regime change? Reality as we know it is changing extremely rapidly. And we've talked a lot about this in the last few years, but especially these last few weeks of 2025, as we witness the unfolding of a new world order, both on the outside and on the inside. We've all been forced to get really clear on our core values. We remember who we are and what matters most. We've had to think about sovereignty and what it really means to me, to us, to our country, to our world, to our generation, and to our epoch in time. We've had to confront our faith. What is the transcending truth that I am following, even as everything changes around me? Do I believe in a happy ending? And am I living as though I am sovereign and confident in my role in a greater unfolding plan? We've had to get very clear on the difference between process and people, structures and essence, systems and meanings. We've had to practice peering through windows that are darkened by smear or veils, and windows that are artificially lightened with spotlights and UV lighting. And we've had to learn how to peer through these manipulated windows and still recognize a thing for what it really is. We've asked ourselves huge questions like, let's say a new world order is powered by a massive AI model that immediately consolidates all information that exists about me, my financial, social, behavioral, psychological profiles, and then generates a profile of who I am. In that case, what would my standing be in the new world order? Who am I actually being in the world? And is that who I want to be? And who is following me and who am I following? And inside of those big questions, we've had to examine what the timeless characteristics of truth are. When we now live in a massive storm of information particles that all claim to be unfailingly correct, and where any action can be reasonably justified, where anyone is manifesting their truth, hyperreal artificial projections, and everyone saying that everyone else is lying, we have to be able to recognize a universal truth, a North Star to follow, and that's why we have Jesus Christ. Follow him. By the way, in Christ, people always come before process. You matter more than any system of governance. And your job when regimes change, when there's a coup on the status quo, when there's conquest and warfare in your life, when society shakes in a seismic cataclysm that changes human life forever, your job is to care for life, to love life, and to nurture the life. Now, I'd like to say that no matter how noble a seed intention might be, like, for example, let's dissolve a corrupt world system and liberate the sovereign people. No matter how noble that intention is, we are nonetheless accountable for how that process unfolds. And there is no value, including efficiency, that means more than each human's sovereign life. God's will never requires human sacrifice. There is no process, no matter how efficient, that justifies the collateral damage in human life that is being done in the name of the new world. If it isn't unconditional life, it isn't Christ. If it isn't unconditional love, it isn't Christ. Someone said to me, but they just need to get the job done, really. We just need to get it done. We don't need our leaders to be righteous. They almost never are. And that's fair reasoning, but we should. We should expect and demand that our leaders are righteous and that they follow the golden rule above all else. And what's more, we should demonstrate righteous leadership and use our sovereignty to put love for others first in every decision that we make. and thus never justify the forced conquest of others as a means to an end in our businesses, in our friendships, in our family dynamics, or in our new approach to life as society changes. So, how do I stay sovereign during a regime change? Here is a 5-step protocol. So let's say then that expansion is a quality of the universe and therefore also a quality of your life. Both the essence and the fabric of who you are will always naturally unfold and expand and grow and improve like the vine unfolding and bearing fruit. It's a natural organic part of what is, of what God is. And this is providential and divine, which means you are always in the presence of this creative life force that expands and unfolds. Remember, it is consciousness that governs energy, and it is energy which governs form. So your prime directive is to maintain a sovereign consciousness that knows love, sees love, chooses love, and follows love, no matter how turbulent the landscape is around you. Me and my husband, Matt, who's on the call today, we have had the privilege of living through multiple natural disasters, financial disaster, homelessness, chronic illness, extremely complex devastations. And the hardest time was last year when first Hurricane Helene flooded our home and all our belongings and our vehicles and poisoned the land of our homestead. And in the first week of recovering from that, while also running life and home with no house, we were suddenly thrown into preparing for the impending Hurricane Milton, which would bring month-long power and communication blackouts that we also needed to prepare for. So this was extremely complex problem solving and multitasking under life-critical stress conditions in a collective energy field of impending doom. And me, my husband, and I, and our young daughters, we sailed through it with minimal trauma because we are sovereign. We dematerialized quickly, we rematerialized quickly, we stayed true to our core values, we stayed in love, we stayed present and responsive to what was occurring. And we followed the hero's protocol, which is outlined further in this book, The Sovereign Way, which you can get on Amazon or by clicking the link on this channel. So in this book, in the chapter of expansion, there is a 5-step protocol that my husband and I always follow in times of crisis and expansion. And we call it the hero's protocol. And we use it for dealing with anything overwhelming, like a Category 5 hurricane or a geopolitical meltdown or an authoritarian regime change or an economic reset. We've been through all these things and we've used the protocol and it helps. It's really simple. Here we go. Let me just check in with the Oasis. Are you ready for the 5-step protocol? You've got something to write on? Step 1, surrender. Now, I don't mean surrender like give your sovereignty to your enemy. Or let the conquerors come in through your borders, or just lean back and take the injustice. I don't mean it like that. I mean that to truly engage with what is, you have to first accept that it is. The thing that we know is occurring, it's occurring. I remember right up until hours before Hurricane Milton hit our community, people were saying, this is all exaggerated. We can just love and light it away. It probably won't happen. They weren't preparing. No, call it for what it is. It is actually occurring, and you have no influence until what's actually occurring is also really happening for you. Do you remember the distinction between what's actually occurring and what's really happening? True influence, true magnetic alchemy only occurs when what is actually occurring in our shared infrastructure is also really happening for you. Surrender to what is, because only then is your influence coming from Christ and not from an egoic position in some artificial reality that you're energetically trying to manipulate and control into being. Have you just lost your job? Have you just lost your security? Have you just lost your health? Have you just lost your reputation? Have you just lost your home and friends? Have you just lost the footing, the ground under your feet? Step one is surrender to what is occurring. And then step two is ground. Okay, so let's say you've surrendered control over reality and you've accepted what is. Now you can ground yourself into what is. You can bring the fullness of your presence into what is actually occurring. You can know, who am I? Where am I? And what matters most? What are my core values right here and right now? And then do an inventory of your manifested reality. Like, what resources do I have? What skills do I have? What have I been trained in and trained for? What supernatural abilities am I bringing forth? What friends do I have that I trust? Where do they live? And how can I get to them? What stockpiles do I have? What travel options do I have? What do I have to trade and exchange? What sources of food and water? What books are in my bookshelf? What spices in my spice rack? Do a thorough audit of your energetic footprint here in this world and notice the blank spaces. Okay, so if step one is surrender to what is, surrender to this shifting thing, this regime change, whatever's new and occurring in my life is happening. Step two is ground into that landscape and fully be here now in it, be present in what is already manifest. And then step three is power up. Step three is elevate. Elevate yourself and your entire environment. Because if you've surrendered to the flow of what's occurring and you've gained a solid foothold in your sovereign reality, it's really easy to allow that omnipresent and omnipotent natural expansion energy to lift you up in consciousness and in your energy field and expand your vision so that you have greater clarity and a more comprehensive view of what is. And now you can easily connect the dots in the great audit that you did in the last step. You can easily see how things connect. You can easily fill in the blanks, skills that you might be missing, but oh, it's okay because my friend Christy can do that really well. And here are resources that I have to hand, but she doesn't. Oh, that connects really easily. And powering up also means bolstering your manifested reality. Get a bit healthier, get a bit wiser. Improve a few things in the structures around you. Gather, process, make new connections, strengthen your spine and your core muscles a little bit more. Practice your craft. Power up. And then step four is act. Because only then do you take action. You can see why the sequence is important, right? Because if you took action before surrendering to the reality of what's actually occurring, then the action would lead nowhere, but deeper into projection and would require much more energy manipulation to actually lead anywhere. If you take action before you've grounded into who you are and what you have at your disposal, then you're missing 99% of the economies of scale that are already available to you to solve and resolve the situation in response to what's occurring. If you act before you've powered up, then you don't have the vibrational authority to alchemize whatever this energy field is because you can't see it. And it doesn't really matter what your action is. That's between you and your sovereign relationship with God. Maybe you rise up to fight for justice. Maybe you assimilate and help keep the peace. Maybe you just put the kettle on for a pot of tea or go out to work in the garden. The point is that the action you take will be in vibrational resonance to the resolution of whatever is occurring. That key action you take will be in resonance with your sovereign way. In other words, you will be playing your role, whatever action you take. And that leads to step 5, which is allow. And this is maybe the hardest part of the protocol, It's very similar to surrender, but it follows that the action you take will influence your life and leadership, and it will lead to a ripple effect of manifestation, because not only you are in expansion, but everything around you is also in expansion. So if you have taken that action in your highest available power, using your best understanding of what it is that you've been given and how you've been trained to deal with this, and you trust that all of this has come from a surrendered yet sovereign view that I don't know what this really is, but I do know that it is, then it follows that this action must yield the perfect next step for you. So whatever rises, allow it and engage with it in the same way. This is how you surf the tide of rapid changes that are outside of your control, whilst holding a grounded and meaningful presence to influence what you can, and acting from your highest point of sovereign decision-making to allow natural expansion to occur, whatever the weather. Thank you very much for watching. In group today, we're going to explore staying sovereign during a regime change. And we're also going to get a Bible teaching from Christy on Habakkuk and a meditation from Martin as a part of his series, taking us deeper into unconditional love. And this is going to be so special. And I can't wait to hear your thoughts about all this as well. If you're not in the Oasis study group, but you'd like to be, follow the link on this channel. Thanks again for watching. Let's go to our group.